What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Behind the Glass Sports Podcast. We thank you guys for tuning in. Happy Monday to you all. Hopefully you had a great weekend. I know there's two Denver teams yesterday that had a great weekend. There was wins for both of them. And you're like, Steven, how's that possible? The Broncos lost yesterday. No.
They did not.
They won yesterday. Okay, if they actually won, they would have lost. But since they didn't win, they won. Right? I'm confusing myself now. But they got a win. Reason being is now they're in the top 10 of the NFL draft. And how poetic is this, okay? The Denver Broncos own the 9th pick in the NFL draft. The Denver Nuggets, after their win last night, would have the 9th pick in the NBA draft. Poetic. Symbiotic. Simpatico. I mean, that is incredible. But the Broncos lose yesterday to the Raiders. Honestly, and shout out to Kemp. He said, should we take a timeout now? How about now? Maybe now? Not just yet. The Broncos lose yesterday 32-31. And honestly, you want to talk about poetic, really poetic for the Raiders. They lost on a 2-point conversion last year to win the game late. They get it to go this year and end up winning this time around. So
do you think Vic Fangio called that timeout on purpose for a lower pick?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think he's aware enough for that?
I just think he's probably not very good at time management. I just think we have history now to know this. So I think that was just his decision. And it's funny because I saw a tweet yesterday. Let me see if I can find it. And it was John Gruden, I think. This is from Vic Tarfour, who covers the Raiders, I believe. He said, Gruden said the Raiders changed our mind, or quote, changed our mind 3 times on the 2-point conversion. Fortunately, they used a timeout. And then Josh Jacobs said, we would have been scrambling if they hadn't used the timeout. So there you go, Vic. You help him get a win. So good. I know Vic's explanation was he wanted to kind of sort out everything, see what they were in, and make sure they got into the right defense, I guess, something like that. But
yeah, that worked.
I mean, I didn't really care. I mean, honestly, when they kept scoring and taking the lead, like when it was 24-17 or 31-24, I was like, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that Judy touchdown was really cool to see. First off, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Super happy for Judy. Props to Locke because he kept his composure even though it was a 3-man rush. I mean, he kept his composure. He hung back there and he delivered a really good ball. And Judy was able to take it. I think it was like 91, 92 yards. Mm-hmm. And then once that happened, I was like, fine. Of course, I should have expected them to win this game. And then the defense coming in clutch, baby. That Vic Fangio defense that everybody raves about, giving up another game-winning drive. It's just the Broncos lose. But they ultimately win with the better draft positioning. They're at 9. And, I mean, listen, the season's done. We don't have to go through this pain anymore.
Yeah. This team does the same thing every week. We talk about the same. I don't know what to say anymore because I keep on saying the same crap every week and every day. But they do the same things every week. It's comical. Yeah, Vic Fangio, probably the worst head coach in the league that still has a job. There's a lot of coaches that have been fired over the last couple weeks, or I guess couple months. I think he's probably the worst remaining, unless did the Chargers fire Lynn yet?
I haven't seen anything on Anthony Lynn yet, no.
Okay, he might be the second one.
I know Gase and Marone have been fired, though.
Right. I mean, to be fair, I think Anthony Lynn has been a better head coach these last few weeks than Vic Fangio. So I don't know. He's an awful. I don't know how anyone can say that he is either 1, a good coach, 2, an average coach, or 3, he's getting better, because he's not. He made go back to week 1. He made the timeout mistake to end that game, and it gave Drew Lock maybe 30 seconds. That's not enough time. It's just not. I don't think even Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes could really pull that off. I mean, you'd have to get extremely lucky to pull that off. And then on top of then 16 weeks later, you make the same mistake and you call a timeout when you're not supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's comical. He hasn't gotten better. It's pretty obvious he hasn't gotten better. So I mean, I don't.
Well, the funny thing, I had this argument a few weeks ago. Well, with our guy, not argument, but I had this little debate with our guy Cameron a few weeks ago because they were just, say he was saying, and the more positive Broncos crowd were saying, "Oh, Vic is getting better. You can see it."
How
And I
can,
listened. I was like, "Cam, like these were the red flags." And I can try and pull up the tweet, but like, listen, why should this shock anybody? And now I'm just seeing, like, Cameron was tweeting about it yesterday. I don't know what he was thinking. It was poor time management. I'm like, why are you surprised? I was telling you this weeks ago, and you were saying he was improving. Now you're surprised, like. And some people are like, Kemp said it. This is a fireable offense. Well, guys, this has been 2 years now. Like, even between week 1 and week 17, there's been moments where his clock management and his questionable timeout usage and lack thereof has been just like, what are you doing? I just listen. We've all known where I've stood on this season and what I thought they should do and still think they should do, but they're not. When it comes to approaching this team, I think it should have been a clean house and it should have been a tank job. Obviously, the players and coaches won't do that. I get that. I'm not saying the coaches and players are like 1-2-3 Cancun. Let's throw this thing, baby.
I mean, Vic
No, they're
Fangio
not
made
doing
it
that.
seem like that at the end of that game.
Well, right. But typically, they're not going to do that unless you're the Philadelphia Eagles. But that's what I wanted them to do. Clear
That was
house.
hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, you want to talk about a noticeable tank job? Philadelphia Eagles was like, you guys can have this one. And like the Giants are complaining about it, like, oh, really? You're gonna take it? Why isn't Jalen Hurts in? Hey, how about you win more games and play better throughout the season and not have to rely on another team?
Yeah,
So,
if you go 8-8, you make the playoffs.
right. So, like, why are you mad at the Eagles? Get mad at yourself for sucking all year long and then deciding to play well, Denver Bronco Jr. Okay. But anyways, I thought they should have just cleared house, got rid of everybody, including Joe Ellis, but that's not going to happen. So what was my next choice? Bring everybody back? Because I keep being told about this continuity thing. Oh, they just need a third year. Oh, once they get a third year, everything will be cured. It'll all be better. So you know what? I bought in. Okay, third year. Drew Lock's in, well, his second year, but technically his third year as a pro. Second full year, right? You're going to bring Pat Shurmur back. Awesome. Love that. Can't wait for us to run it on 2nd and 13 and punt the 2 plays later. And then Vic Fangio. Awesome. Can't wait for those timeouts to be completely just, shredded at the wrong times and not used in the most important times. So, but maybe they'll prove me wrong. They have the talent, like we said before this season and all season long. They have the talent to be a wild card team. Now, can they put all the intangible stuff together?
They have the talent in all the, I don't want to say wrong places, but they don't have the talent in the most 2 important positions on the team. That's quarterback and that's head coach. It's pretty simple. If they have a better quarterback, I'm not even saying a great quarterback. I'm saying, like, if they had Derek Carr and if they just had a better coach, they win 10 games this year. It's pretty simple. I mean, if they have Derek Carr, how many we went through it in the last podcast. If they had Justin Herbert, go through all the games that they probably win instead of lose. I had them winning 10 games. If they had Justin Herbert, and you go back and look at the Broncos schedule, and you say they have the wins that they already have, there's 5 games where they were a quarterback away. It was pretty simple. But that goes to my argument and what I think they should do. Now, I don't know. Unfortunately, not enough teams won to where Denver moved up enough. Denver has a 9th pick now. At that point, I don't know.
If you look at the order right now, There's like 4 or 5 teams you could see taking a quarterback.
Yeah,
Like
right.
Jacksonville, obviously going to take Trevor Lawrence. The Jets, we still don't know what's going to happen
They
with Sam
might they
Darnold.
might keep Sam Darnold.
They may, but would you be
Been hearing
shocked if
that a
they
lot.
took Justin Fields
No,
or like
no,
Zach Wilson or anybody?
no.
Miami, I mean, listen, I know they took Tua, but he hasn't looked great.
Well,
They've
they
benched him
won't.
twice.
Yeah, but they won't take quarterback.
I I listen. I wouldn't be completely shocked. Atlanta, that's a team also that could take a
No,
quarterback.
they'll keep Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan showed enough.
Eh,
Matt Ryan's had a
showed
good,
enough to finish 4-12.
well, Matt Ryan's had a good year. That defense is god awful. I mean, they need
I
to
don't know.
take they're gonna take the best defensive player on the board. That's what they're
If
gonna do.
if I were them, I'd consider making that change
Why?
now. That's just me though,
Why?
because Matt Ryan's like 57. You say he's had
But
a
yet,
good year,
but
but
yet you
obviously
want,
he's not good enough to
but
lead you out of 4
yet
and
you
12.
want Matthew Stafford.
I mean, I'd still take Matthew Stafford over Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan's
But
had a 10 times better season than Stafford has this year.
sure, but I mean, he still finished 4-12.
Yeah,
So how good of a season did he actually
Atlanta
have?
can't defend anyone,
Plus, those are all
and they can't
garbage
run
time
the
yards.
ball.
Those don't count. Garbage time. They're already down 50, and he's having to throw a lot. It's stat padding. That's what it is. Philadelphia, that's a team also that could possibly take a quarterback. I mean, maybe
Yeah,
they're sold on
well,
Jalen Hurts.
I don't know what's going on because I thought they really liked Jalen Hurts, and then
I think they do. They just wanted to lose.
all right, well then they won't
Uh,
take quarterback because I
And
like
then
Jalen Hurts too. So
and then Detroit and Carolina.
Detroit, I can see taking quarterback. Carolina needs a quarterback.
So there you go. I mean, that's a handful of teams.
You would
More
have
than a handful
to
of teams.
you would have to hope that essentially either who has 3 and 4?
3 is Miami and 4 is Atlanta.
Okay, you would have to hope that one of either the Jets, Miami, or Atlanta wants to trade with you. But again, you're giving up a lot. And so you have to make sure that you absolutely love the quarterback. And I mean, me personally, I would do it for Zach Wilson because I think he's the best quarterback in the draft. But other than that, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't trade up. If you really like Trey Lance, he'll probably be there. I think Trey Lance goes 9 or 10, or he's in that range. So you might have to move up maybe 2 picks, or even 1. But other than that, I don't see them taking quarterback. And when we talked about this a couple weeks ago, I said if they don't take quarterback, I want them to take Micah Parsons. A lot of people on Twitter, Cam, everyone, pretty much everyone, that's who everyone wants. I don't think he's gonna be there though at 9. I just don't. There's a chance if all 4 quarterbacks get taken in the first 9, but even then, I'm not gonna be shocked if Atlanta takes him at 4, because like I said, Atlanta should take the best defensive player. So I don't think he's gonna be there at that point. You probably just want a corner, but I don't think there's like a great corner in this draft. There's good corners.
A lot of people like the Caleb Farley kid, Sertain the third.
Surtain has struggled this year. He was like I remember early in the year, because I was already looking earlier in the year because, I figured the Broncos would be bad. And he was top 5, but he's had a rough year. There's another kid. It might have been Farley. Let me double check here. But
And while you're looking too, I'm just seeing the statement from the Chargers that they have parted ways with Anthony Lynn.
okay, so Vic Fangio is now the worst quarterback. Yeah, he's definitely the worst quarterback. Worst head coach in the NFL. So I'm looking at a mock draft that was done 4 hours ago. Trevor Lawrence goes number 1. The Jets, he has taking an offensive tackle. He says that there was seemingly no doubt the Jets would end up with Trevor Lawrence from a blah, blah, blah. But deep down, I think New York knows that just taking quarterbacks is like shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic. Penny Sewell is a safe pick. And they might like Sam Darnold just enough to just fix that offensive line. I don't think that's a bad pick because you could always they need a tackle to help Sam Darnold. Um, and the way they finished the season, I think they're on the right track. I think Sam Darnold has a lot of talent. They just haven't handled him well at all. I would take an offensive tackle, and then I would go get maybe a receiver in the second round, and maybe a running back at some point, and just dropped a lot of offense for that team. And then, just put the talent around Sam Darnold. Number 3, I would love this kid if the Broncos didn't have so many wide receivers, but Devontae Smith, my God. He's gonna win Heisman. He's gonna win the Heisman award. Wide receiver out of Alabama. They have Miami taking him. That's a good pick. Put Tua back with one of his receivers. At number 4, they have Atlanta taking Justin Fields. I don't think that's gonna happen. To be honest, I don't think that happens at all. But never know. Jamar Chase, wide receiver out of LSU, goes to Cincinnati. Get Joe Burrow, his receiver from college. That's a good pick. I don't know if I'm in Cincinnati though. You might want to take an offensive tackle if you can, because there's a reason why Joe Burrow missed the second half of the season. You can't protect him. At number 6, they have Micah Parsons going to Philly. He doesn't drop to 9. There's just no way he drops to 9. He's the best defensive player on the board. He's not going to drop to 9. Jalen Waddle, another wide receiver out of Alabama, goes to Detroit. That's an interesting pick. This mock draft has Atlanta getting rid of Matt Ryan and Detroit keeping Matthew Stafford.
Smart. I like it. Joke's on you. That was written by me. Ha!
Number 8, they have Kyle Pitts, the tight end out of Florida, going to Carolina. And then they have the Denver Broncos taking an offensive tackle.
I like that. Listen, interior tackle, interior defense, that is.
I'd rather
and corner.
Yeah, look, tackle is fine, but I think that's not the least of their worries, but that's the lower on the board. I would either go corner, Mike Parsons if he's there.
You may have to throw in safety in there too, because if Justin Simmons and depending on Kareem Jackson, he could be one of those veteran move cuts. If they move on from him, if they feel like they can save money there, you might want to throw safety in there too. I agree now, because Jawan James is going to come back, so technically you do have your left and right tackle solidified. So I guess using a top 10 pick on that position now, given that Garrett Bowles has panned out,
right? It doesn't it doesn't really make sense.
Reverses.
Unless they're gonna, I don't know what money looks like with Jawan James, but unless they're gonna move on from him.
Oh, you can't. No, his contract is guaranteed.
Then
essentially, what he would have been paid is just going to roll over.
Then it makes 0 sense for them to take an offensive tackle. Now, here's the interesting with this mock draft. I don't think it's going to happen, but Zach Wilson goes 12 in this mock draft. If he's there at number 9,
Brandon will explode if he's there.
You have to take him. You have to. He's the best quarterback in this draft. I'm telling you. He is the best quarterback in this draft. Did you watch Clemson play Ohio State? Look.
I watched a little bit of the game. Yeah.
Look, Trevor Lawrence didn't throw any interceptions. The one thing he does well is he takes care of the ball, but so does Zach Wilson. I don't see it. I don't see it. Unless he just really doesn't give a crap. That's the only explanation.
Maybe
he's either desperately trying not to get hurt, and it's resulting in playing like crap, or he's not it. He's gonna be a good quarterback. I'm not saying he's a bust. He's gonna be a good quarterback, but Zach Wilson is better.
The one guy's been doing it for like 3 years. The other guy's been doing it for a year.
Sure, but Clemson is also a great team. How many players have come out of that team in the NFL draft in the first round, specifically?
A lot. Recently, a lot.
A lot. He's playing with a lot of talent. So, I'm just saying, I don't see it. I don't. As far as being the conclusive number 1 pick, in the NFL draft, he's the best since Andrew Luck came into the NFL draft, or John Elway. No, I don't see that. I don't. There, Andrew Luck was, you could see it on the field. I mean, it was obvious. This is not obvious.
I think you just hate his hair. I think you're just jealous of his hair.
Look, no,
and
the last 2 years
you're angry.
2 years ago I was saying tank for Lawrence, and he was a freshman. But I thought he would get better. I don't think he's gotten better since his freshman year. That's the problem.
We'll see. It sounds like he's going to be paired up with Urban Meyer in Jacksonville. That's the hot rumor is that Urban Meyer is going to take the job.
And it depends on how you use him. So, depending on what team you go to, the weapons that you have, all of that. But he's going to go to a really bad team with no weapons. I mean, you got Shenault there. Who had 2 touchdowns yesterday. So we'll see. It depends on. It always depends on the situation. I mean, Zach Wilson goes to San Francisco, he's gonna have a 10 times better career than Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville.
Oh, I don't know about that. We'll see though. We have a crumble bet on this.
Zach Wilson with Kyle Shanahan, and those weapons dude. Yeah, no, he's gonna be good. He's gonna be good with that team. That team is gonna know how to use him, know how to use a young quarterback, running the ball, play action, fast receivers. That's it.
We'll see.
That's it.
I mean, listen, it's a great situation to drop into because we all know that the 49ers are actually a playoff team if they didn't have all the injuries this year. So, I mean, that'd be a great situation for really any young quarterback, I think. But it's going to be interesting to see it play out because now this is the time where the guys are solidified, and then over the next 3 months, guys are going to move. You're going to nitpicking is going to start about all these players, and they're going to be prodded and examined and all this. So we got 3 months of this. So now it's draft season. But for the Broncos, I think right now, as it stands today, I'd say corner, safety, and linebacker. I think interior, it depends on what they do with Shelby Harris. But Draymond Jones had a really good year. I think he's been a solid pickup, draft pick that's kind of panned out. If they bring back Shelby, I think your interior is fine. Maybe you just get somebody in the later rounds for depth. Yeah. But I would say linebacker, safety, and corner are something that needs to be examined right now. Offensively,
and safety, unless you sign Justin Simmons, right?
Right. Well, and he just posted on Instagram too. It's kind of cryptic. It was just a photo of him walking from the field, and it just says "Thank you, Broncos country." So we'll see. We'll see what plays out. But he might have just priced himself out of what the Broncos can afford. And good for him because he bet on himself. He didn't like the Broncos offer, and he said, you know what, I'm going to bet on myself, and he did. And he comes away this season with 5 picks.
Yeah,
he's widely regarded as one of the best safeties in the league.
Yeah, for first couple of weeks, I thought it was kind of ridiculous that people were saying he's a top 5 safety. He proved me wrong. It's great.
Yeah, no, I think he's there. I'd like to have Justin back, but I'm afraid he's probably priced himself
it's a bummer.
out of the Broncos range.
It's a bummer. Because, in weeks 1 through 4, I would have been like, yeah, okay, he can walk away. I don't care. But yeah, no, it sucks. I also don't think, though, that safety is that important when it comes to making sure that you have a top 5 player in the league at that position. So,
yeah,
I'd rather you go out and get a corner in the draft that's a top 5 corner in the league, or signing a top 5 corner, or signing a top 5 linebacker, or something like that. I don't think safety is important, but I don't think you need a top 5 safety in the league. I mean, just go look at the Super Bowl team. I mean, Stewart was really good, but was he top 5 at the time? No. TJ Ward, was he top 5 at the time? No. So you just need 2 solid safeties, 2 good safeties, maybe 1 top 10, but you don't need a top 5 safety.
No, but it sure helps when you can get a top 5 at any position.
Yeah,
so
but
we'll see what happens with Justin.
I think I agree with Denver in the sense of you don't necessarily want to pay a safety that much money.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
it sucks because he has had a great year. He's proven me wrong, but at the same time, it's not where Denver's at right now. And honestly, if I were him, I'd want to leave anyways. This team sucks. They're a disaster. They're run
Yeah.
poorly. They're the worst run organization in the league because now Jacksonville's going to get their quarterback and a pretty good head coach, and the Jets are moving on. So at this point, the Denver Broncos are probably the worst run franchise in the NFL.
Well, listen, they were underdogs in 16 games this year.
They're the only team.
And earlier this year, when I was going back and forth, when I had that little spat with, the guy that works for the media partner, okay, of the Broncos, and all the conglomerate of the Broncos Kool-Aid army were very angry at me for calling his take a, team partner take. I said to one of the Kool-Aid fans, I was like, listen, this team is the new Browns. They're the new Jets. Look at how they're running. And you're so stupid. You really think this team is the new Browns? Well, okay. How many losing seasons in a row have we had now? They're the only team in NFL history to be underdogs in all 16 games.
Oh, and by the way,
The
how many
amount of turnovers that
quarterbacks?
they've had, the losing margin that they've had.
Remember when the fans had the jersey with all the names on
Right.
the Broncos
That's
are
the
pretty close to that already.
QB carousel, okay? Like literally every network has that graphic now where it's a carousel of QBs
Yep.
and they just hop around on the little, they got Drew Lock on the little unicorn, they got Peyton on the little bull, they got, Trevor Simeon in a little car, me. Yeah, that's now in rotation for every network. Okay? That doesn't include the rotation of how many starting right tackles we've had since Orlando Franklin's been there, or the amount of head coaches. What is it, like 4 and 5 years, or 5 and 6, something like that? The amount of offensive coordinators that they've had, defensive court. Like, listen, guy, like this is not a joke. Like this is reality with this team. They're poorly run. They're poorly coached. And before these past 2 years, I'd say they didn't have a lot of talent. Now they have talent on the field.
And they still
It's
suck.
just figuring out that other stuff.
Yeah, only team to win a Super Bowl and then miss playoffs 5 years in a row. Thanks, Kim.
There you go. So keep laughing about it. I get it. You're a fan and you only want to support your team and think positive thoughts, but you can be objective. You can criticize your team. I would argue that criticizing the team actually shows you care a lot because you have a standard and you want it to be met.
To be fair, on Facebook, I'm friends with certain. Obviously, I have family members on Facebook that are like that. They support the team no matter what. They're fans and they're good fans, and 2 of them said fire Vic Fangio.
There you go. Well, and listen, there's a lot of fans that I've seen this year where it's like I don't even watch the game anymore, and that's the scary part. If you're the team, if you're a part of the team, if you're in management, if you're in ticket sales, when fans stop not only watching, but when you can attend games again, stop attending. If this keeps going, that's when you get to a part. It's like, oh man, this could be irreversible. Like that's when you get to the bag overhead situation.
Mm-hmm.
So keep thinking it's all bunnies and sunshine over there at Dove Valley in the UC Health Training Center, but really there's real stuff going on that needs to be fixed. So we'll see if they fix it next year. They're bringing everybody back. That's what it looks like. Barring any serious injury issues that we had this year carrying over into next year, I don't want any excuses. None. I don't want no excuses. This should be a wild card team.
You know what sucks
I looked
about
at their
this?
schedule last night. They put it out. And I mean, obviously you can't go off of, this season and how teams are going to do, because there's always surprise teams and teams that, fall back down to earth a little bit. But next year, obviously, outside of the Chargers, Chiefs, and Raiders, they're going to face the Bengals at home. They're going to face Philly at home. They're going to face Baltimore at home, Washington at home, and Jets at home. Off the top of my head.
That's a tough schedule.
Sure, but I would say I would favor them over the Bengals. I think they could win that game.
But Cincinnati's going to be better. Joe Burrow will be in his second year.
And this is way too early, but I'm just thinking, right, I think they could beat the Bengals.
If they get Joe Burrow more help, that's a tough game. That's a tough game.
It's tough, but I think it's winnable. But I think there's at least 4 games that they could win at home, if not 5. The Raiders, Bengals, Jets, Washington, and the Eagles.
I don't think they beat Washington.
I think they could beat Washington because I don't know what Washington's doing at quarterback. So they have a great defense right now, but we don't know what changes are coming. And we know that the Broncos have talent on offense.
I mean,
So
I think Alex Smith is better than Drew Lock.
Sure, but he's not what he once was, though.
No,
even the Chargers I'll throw in there. That's 6 winnable games at home.
Oh,
and
the Chargers
on the road,
winnable.
I mean, you could split with the Raiders and Chargers at home. I mean, so I'm giving them at least one win against one of the both of those teams.
Right.
And then you got the Browns. I mean, given what the Browns are, they're a playoff team, but I think that's a winnable game. The Cowboys, that's a winnable game. Giants, that's a winnable game.
The Cowboys,
the Steelers, they might not have been.
If Dak Prescott is healthy, no, I don't think that's winnable.
Ooh, with that defense? No.
Hey,
that's
if in the draft they go defense,
sure, but that's still a winnable game. I'm just saying that these are games that I could foresee them winning. I think they could win at least 6. They'll split for sure with the Chargers and Raiders, I think. I think they could beat the Bengals. I think they could beat the Jets. I think they could beat Washington. I think they could beat Philly. I think they could beat the Browns. The Cowboys, the Giants, they almost beat the Steelers this year. And depending on what they do at the quarterback position, they could probably beat them next year. And then Jacksonville. So listen, it should be a shock, and this is way too early, and we got to see what teams do in the offseason and in the draft and hope for no injuries. But if the Broncos are at least 7 wins next year, what happened? I don't want to hear any excuses. There's no excuses next year. None. There's none you can go to. It's not the Drew Lock's young excuse. It's, oh, he had a different coordinator excuse. Oh, we changed coaches excuse. Oh, this, oh, that. No. You have talent now. You have continuity now. This is what you told me you needed. So if they're not at least 7 to 8 wins and in the wild card, then it's a failure to me.
Well, they're going to need – no, I would say they need at least 9 or 10 based off what you're saying.
Maybe.
That should be expectations. They keeping the head coach, staying with Drew Lock, making all these excuses about injuries and you know, the COVID year, all that. They should at least have 9 wins. If you're going to bring everyone back.
Sure. I would say right now, I would put them ahead of the Chargers.
I think they win 7.
Because there's a new regime change.
I think they win 6 or 7. That's what I think they're going to do.
If they have another losing year, I will explode on Twitter if they have another losing year.
The worst part about this, though, is that you're passing up because you want continuity and you've fired so many coaches over the last blah, 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 many years. You're missing out on, I think, one of the better quarterback draft classes in a while. That sucks.
Well,
that sucks.
That's why I wanted them to tank. They had a chance at Trevor Lawrence there for a little bit.
You don't know. I mean, they didn't even have to tank. I mean, they won only 5 games. You would be in position right now. But it's not going to happen. And that's the frustrating part is they're going to have a shot. Possibly. They're possibly going to have a shot. Whether it's someone wants to trade down in the top 5 or one of the quarterbacks drop to 9. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to take them. And that is the worst feeling in the world when you need a quarterback. And everyone other than your fans and yourself believes you need a quarterback. I mean, did the broadcast last night, they were talking about should they go, in the draft or should they try and sign a veteran? They didn't even talk about Drew Lock coming back. It's almost like a foregone conclusion from everyone outside of the team that
nationally, the vibe is that they need a quarterback.
Yeah. That's the worst part about this is that they're gonna if Zach Wilson is there and they don't take him, or they had an opportunity to trade up and they didn't to get Zach Wilson, and he ends up being really good, what I think he can be, I mean, that's like I said in the last podcast, I'd rather take the shot and miss than not take it and watch them be a perennial Pro Bowl quarterback for the next decade. I mean, all those teams that passed up on on Patrick Mahomes that needed a quarterback that year.
Mm-hmm.
At least Chicago, they took a shot. They had a guy that they loved.
Yeah.
They took the shot. At least they took it.
It just clanged off back iron, but they took it.
Right.
They checked that thing out.
I'd rather take that shot than, I mean, how many of those teams needed a quarterback at that time? And they didn't take a single one. They let Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson go. And they're probably kicking themselves right now.
Well, yeah. I mean, one's going to go down as the best quarterback in NFL history, and the other's a really good Pro Bowl caliber quarterback right now in Deshaun Watson. So Kemp said they're also missing out on Urban Meyer and other coaches too. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a crop of college coaches that
there's some really
are
good
going to be
coaches
considered that they're not going to consider.
The Northwestern coach.
Yeah.
That's when, halfway through the season, I told you what I would want. Clean house and go after an offensive-minded head coach or, someone in college or the best OC that you could find in the NFL. I would have preferred the, offensive-minded college coach. That Northwestern coach, I forget his name, but that would be my pick. I'm curious to see where he goes and who they pair him with, because obviously if they don't pair him with a good quarterback, then that he's gonna fail, but most likely. But yeah, it's a good year to reset, and unfortunately they're gonna miss it.
Yeah, and
all these teams ahead of them in the draft are gonna go way past them.
The Broncos have 9 picks, I believe, in the draft. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
you have the ammo to move
up.
up.
3 7s.
You have the ammo.
Yeah. Well, they have 3 7s and the normal amount of the regular picks. So, I mean, they'd have to give up. Their first, probably their second, and depending on where they move, and probably a first, maybe 2 firsts.
Yeah, and I'm not saying
that's a lot.
I'm not saying to move up into the top 3, because I just don't think that's realistic at this point. But I mean, there's a chance. I mean, if you could get up to 6 or even 5, if Cincinnati doesn't want to be at 5. But that's still, I don't know. Like I said on Friday, the goal was to get to number 7, because at number 7 I could see someone dropping to 7, and you could easily trade up to 5, right? Or even 4. But you're at 9. I don't think it's a realistic chance that they can jump up that high anymore. So at this point, I fully expect them to trade down. That's probably what they're gonna do.
Yeah, we'll see what they do. We still got 3 months, but you mentioned Drew Lock earlier, and I think we can't do this show without, and we've already kind of done it with Vic Fangio. We can't do this show without evaluating his full year. Well, give or take, because he didn't play every single game. Last night finished, or yesterday I should say, 25 of 41, 339 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 103 passer rating, and a 42.2 QBR. On the year, Drew Lock had, 2,933 yards. He had a completion percentage of 57.3.
Oh, that is
16
so
touchdowns
bad.
to 15 picks. And he played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 games. So 13 out of the 16 there.
Look, he has a decent amount of yards. But what has to scare you is the completion percentage.
Mm.
I mean, that is a combination of bad decisions and inaccuracy. I mean, if you're not throwing at least 60%, probably you should really be at 65% completion percentage. You're not a good quarterback. You're just not. I mean, that is
Yeah, and I mean
That
it
is bad.
fluctuated from week to week too. Like it was, every week it was up and down. Week one 66, and then 20 obviously against Pittsburgh. So I guess we can't really count that. New England it was 41, 60, 63, 52, 48, 60, 53, 77, 62, 51, 61. So it's like it's up and down, up and down. There's no consistency, and I mean he had to throw a lot in a lot of games. I mean 41 attempts yesterday, 47 in that Chargers game. 47 against the Raiders the first game, 48 against the Atlanta Falcons, 41 in the first Chargers game, 40 against Kansas City. And that's a lot. You don't
Yeah.
want him throwing the ball that much.
Well, and you look at it. Yesterday was one of his best games of the season, and his completion percentage was 61.
Which is
I
it's
mean,
solid. That's solid.
that should be a yeah, that should be a solid game, not one of his best.
Right. Well,
That's the
that's the thing with
problem.
Drew. It's just each game it's a microcosm of his season. Like there's moments where you're like, okay, that is really good. That's a great throw. And then it's, I was telling this to Nick Ferguson the other day. I was like, listen, for every great moment, it's like he has an equal bad moment or like two more bad moments. So it's like for every good thing, there's something bad to go along with it. And you could just say, that's a young quarterback. Okay, fine. I'll give you that. But I just feel like when you have a special quarterback. And there's also the argument of, well, did the Bills know that Josh Allen was going to be special? Well, no. He had a rough start to his career. But one thing, and I keep forgetting who says it, but one thing that helped them stick with Josh Allen is he did one thing early on very special, and that's run the football.
Yeah.
He was special at running the football. So even when you couldn't rely on him to pass it, he could make something happen with his legs. Drew Lock is an average athlete in the NFL. He's not a burner. He's not super elusive like Lamar Jackson. He's not overpowerful to where he's running through guys like Cam and Josh Allen.
Also,
he can pick up yards, but it's not anything like that.
Also, name one receiver that Josh Allen had his first 2 years.
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
They had no talent. I mean, it's pretty simple. They had no talent. They gave Drew Lock a ton of talent. It was their mission to go out and get Drew Lock talent. They spent $9 million on a running back, and they spent their first two picks in the draft on wide receivers. They went out and got him talent. They have a great tight end. They went out and got him another tight end, big target. They have a great receiver, obviously, in Cortland Sutton. He missed the year, fine, but you still have a first-round wide receiver who is considered by most the best receiver in the class. You can barely get him the ball half the time. You have KJ Hamler, a speed guy. Tim Patrick is a really good receiver, 6'6". I don't know how he hasn't had a better year, but he just can't get the ball. You gave him talent.
It's not a talent issue. And I was having this argument yesterday because I tweeted out, I was like, when are we gonna have a serious conversation about how many deep balls Drew Lock misses? Because it's a consistent thing. And one of the responses I got, well, he's throwing to guys that shouldn't even be in the league. I was like, really? He's got a first-round wide receiver, a second-rounder in KJ Hamler, who obviously didn't play, but he was there, a first-rounder in Noah Fant, Tim Patrick, who's got over 700 yards, and you mentioned Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay, but I mean, I'll give you like Deshaun Hamilton. Okay, he's iffy at best. And then Tyree Cleveland. Okay, whatever. But Tyree Cleveland hasn't been active for most of the season. So it's not like he's throwing to scrubs. Okay, it's not like he's throwing to a bunch of no-name guys. Like there's legitimate talent. Like Jerry Jeudy, I've seen a lot of people call him a bust. Jerry Judy's gonna finish, and I can.
He's
just look
had
at his
actually a
stats right
really
now.
good year.
He did. Yesterday he had 5 for 140, clearly his best game of the year and of his young career right now. But if you look at Jerry Jeudy's stats, people say it was a bust. It's a bad year. He has 856 yards, 3 touchdowns. If Drew Lock connected on 2, maybe 3 more of those deep balls that they've missed throughout the entire time that they played, he probably has just over 1,000 yards. Now I get it. The concerning thing here is he has 113 targets, 52 receptions. But he had maybe like
a lot of
10
that
drops?
But a lot of that is Drew Lock just flat out missing.
It is. Now he did drop a lot. I think he's probably up there in drops. He's probably
Mhm.
got around maybe 10.
He's right there with CeeDee
Um,
Lamb. They
but
have the about CeeDee Lamb, by the way, with the game on the line, had a drop. So it happens to
yeah,
everyone. It happens. So you can't just you can't just be like, well, Drew Lock is the only quarterback in the league that has to deal with these drop passes. No, Dallas had the game on the line, a chance to make the playoffs, and CeeDee Lamb dropped the ball, and he was wide open over the middle. Honestly, it's either a first down at worst or a touchdown. But he did the same thing that most young receivers do. And it's the reason why Jerry Jeudy has so many drops. He started to run before, he started to make his move before he had the ball. And that's just something young receivers have to deal with. Justin Jefferson has had a couple of drops this year doing the same thing. And he's had the best rookie receiver performance in NFL history, at least in the Super Bowl era. So, it happens to a lot of rookie wide receivers. So look at Cortland's rookie year. I mean,
right.
Technically Jerry Jeudy had a better year than Cortland Sutton did in his rookie year.
And I'm seeing I'm pretty sure this is up to date. At least I'm hoping it is. But this is the Washington Post, their stats of pass drop leaders. At number 1 is Deontay Johnson for Pittsburgh. That's 10. Jerry Jeudy is second with 9. CeeDee Lamb's at 3 with 8.
There you go.
Evan Ingram, 6 for the Giants. Hey, guess who has 6 apiece for the Chiefs? Tyreek Hill and Mecole Hardman.
It happens to everyone.
Stephon Diggs has 5, and he's one of the best receivers in the league. So, yes, I think what's magnified is Jerry Jeudy's drops. There was a lot in a few games.
Right.
Like he had 5 in one game, and then he had 2 big ones earlier in the season. So you see those stick out in your mind. If it was one every other game and a couple here, okay, then it's like, all right, he drops some every now and then, whatever.
Yeah.
But since he had such a large amount, it's like he binges and purges those things.
Yeah. But that's also something where that's a young, you can see, and by those numbers, if I didn't know he was a rookie, I would have asked you if he was a rookie, because usually with rookies you get really bad games, and then you get the really good games. The consistency isn't there, and so people and I think people would say, well, why are you giving Jerry Jeudy a pass and not Drew Lock? Well, one, Drew Lock is technically in his second year, and 2, by the end of the season, you should not be that inconsistent as a quarterback. So,
yeah,
I mean,
and
come on.
And I just think one thing too with Jerry Jeudy is he's a body catcher, so that's concerning a little bit to me.
Yeah.
If you notice, a lot of his catches are body catches. He doesn't. Now he did snag that one in the hands on that 92-yard one, but I think during the offseason, one thing he really has to work on is using his hands more. Right. And Tyree Cleveland too. Every catch Tyree Cleveland had yesterday, it was a body catch, and that's dangerous because that can lead to a lot of drops. And usually guys do that because they're not confident in their hands. And maybe they're in their own head, which we know Jerry Jeudy has been. To answer Kemp's question, I don't think Justin Jefferson did beat Randy Moss's rookie numbers. I saw that on ESPN last night.
He did.
He came close, but
he did.
I don't think he did beat.
He did. I was watching the game.
Oh, he did? Okay, then there you
did.
go. But real quickly, because I want to get to some Nugget stuff too. What would you grade Drew Lock's year? And I guess we can include the 18 games. So through 18 games, it's 59.1 completion percentage. 3,953 yards, 23 touchdowns, 18 interceptions. So, I mean, that's, again, it's solid when you put 18 games together. But if you just look at, because you can't really just take this season alone, because it's only 13 games, and one of those games he was credited for, it was a Steelers game, so he didn't really play that much. Overall, what would you grade Drew Lock's, 18 games? We'll just do it at that. 3,000 yards, 3,953 yards, so only 47 short of 4,000, 59.1 completion percentage, 23 touchdowns, 18 picks.
Yeah, I mean, if you put it that way, but the concerning thing is 5 of those games are probably the 5 games that he played last season, which is in there, are probably 5 of his top 12 games.
I would say yeah,
or
yeah.
four
I
of
mean,
them.
they're probably
Four,
up there
maybe
when
not the Chiefs
if you
game,
looked
but
at his
four of them
games.
are. Yeah. So that's the concerning part. Is it's not like he got better. So overall, I would say that warrants a third year. Um, but it is really concerning that because I'm looking at it right now in 5 games, his completion percentage in 2019 was 64%, 7 touchdowns to only 3 picks, and he had 1,000 yards. So that's fantastic, and that's what that's why people were so excited about him. You can't regress. It's the one thing you can't regress after getting more talent. Like,
Well, I think part of that to play, I guess, to defend Drew. I think part of that too is you saw that Drew. I think is it fair to say that Drew had a better finish to the season than a start to the season? I would
yeah,
say so. Okay, what is the reasoning for that? I think part of the reasoning is Pat Shermer went back to what Drew Lock did well in those 5 games last year, in which he was in a different offense. So I think part of it was to a learning curve for Drew.
mm-hmm.
And I think we've seen that offense really benefits Drew. And you've seen in these last few weeks, and we saw it a ton yesterday. He's under center, and there's a lot of bootlegs. And there's a
Okay,
lot of just
but
one side of the field reads, high low, boom, boom,
mm-hmm.
boom. If it's not there, take off.
Right, but at the same time, his completion percentage last year in those 5 games was 64%.
Yeah.
Over the last 5 games, he's had one game where he's hit 64 or above.
Sure.
And the rest are at 60, 51, 62, and 53.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not even close. In those 5 games, he's thrown let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he's thrown 6, 7, 8, 9 touchdowns to 4 picks. Pretty good. And an average of right around, I would say, 250. So over his last 5 games, yeah, he's improved. But the problem, on the other hand, is that one of them was against Carolina, one of them was against the Chargers, and one of them was against the Raiders. So 3 of those 5 was against 3 of the probably top 5 and worst defenses in the league. So, I mean, and Kansas City, and the other one was Kansas City, and their defense hasn't really been that good. So you should be able to pass the ball pretty well against Kansas City. And in that game, he had 2 picks and had a 53% completion percentage and only 151 yards. So I just, I don't know. I think you really just have to take it next year. And if he doesn't improve by quite a bit off of this year, I mean, he's doing just enough to make you think that he could put it together. He's doing just enough. And
he's the epitome of the dangerous word potential. That's what gets a lot of coaches and executives fired is potential.
Because you look at his numbers as a whole, right, in those 18 games, and you're saying, okay, well, that's not that bad. But then you start looking at them game by game, and then you're seeing the holes. And then not only that, but then you watch the game, and it's super inconsistent when you're watching the game. And there's a lot of issues with him when you're watching the game. So, yeah, the numbers overall look fine. But when you're actually watching it and digging into it, it's not what you need to see from a quarterback that's playing in the year 2020.
Yeah, I agree. So what would you grade his 18 games? If you had to give it a letter grade, what would you give it?
I'd give it a C-.
Oof. Okay.
Because I'm saying he's been below average. After the year that the first 5 games, I would have given him a B+. So, but you can't regress in your second year when the team goes out and gets you talent. They spend $9 million on a running back, and they spent their 2 first picks in the draft on wide receivers. Oh, by the way, you have a first-round tight end. And your offensive line, by the way, has improved. So you can't blame it on the offensive line. So with all of that, if you told me before the year, okay, that Jerry Jeudy would have 800 plus yards, that Noah Fant would have a better year than he did last year, they spent $9 million on Gordon, and he had 1,000. Did he hit 1,000? Or just under?
Let me check. I don't know if he got to 1,000.
He was just under if he didn't.
Yeah, I think let's see, he was at 986, so
Okay.
14 short.
So if you're telling me all this and you tell me that the offensive line was actually really good this year?
Yeah, you developed Garrett Bowles into a franchise left tackle
Right.
that would get paid.
So-
Obviously, there's no Cortland Sutton.
No, but again, Jerry Jeudy hits over 800. Noah Fant hits over 800, right?
Noah Fant was at 673. Tim Patrick was at 742.
Okay.
You had an almost 1,000-yard rusher, and you had a 500-yard rusher.
All of that combined, then one, I would have said the team had a winning record at 9-7 or 10-6, and Drew Lock had a really good year. Not great, but he had a really good year. And I would say he didn't have a great year because Cortland Sutton was out. But instead, he led the league in interceptions. His completion percentage was below 60%. And they went 6-10. Or no, 5-11.
Yeah. No, I mean that's understandable. I think if it were me, I'm wavering between a C+ and a C. I think, like you, I think he's teetering between average and below average. I think there's good things. I think there's bad things. I do think he has steadily improved. I think he knows what he should do in certain situations, but it's putting that into practice and doing it consistently. That's the learning curve, the next step that needs to be taken.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, though, I think you said it best. I think he's done enough to earn a third year.
Yeah.
So while I'm not,
although I wouldn't give him a third year personally if I was running things,
sure,
but that's because I'm looking at the draft. Yeah. That's because I'm looking at the draft class, and I'm seeing 3 really good quarterbacks that I think are already better than Drew Lock. That's the only reason. If there wasn't 3 of them, if there was 2 and the 2 were going to go 1 and 2, then I'd say fine. But there's a third and potentially a fourth, and that's where I am at. But yes, he has earned a third year based on where they're drafting and the head coach being given a third year, which he has not earned, by the way. So
I would say he gets a third year. I'm curious. We'll see how it goes. I don't want any excuses though next year. Like listen, he's got a full 18 under his belt. That's a lot of film for him to go back and look at the good and the bad. And the thing about Drew is he does seem to have the right mindset. Like he knows he needs to improve. And he has the talent to be a good quarterback in this league. It's just putting it all together consistently with the mental aspect of the game and the intangibles of the game and the nuances and all that. So we'll see if he can do it. Think he gets a third year. I don't think they draft a quarterback, and we'll see how that goes. But before we wrap up today.
Well, actually, real quick, what would
go
be if he plays a full 16 games, what do you want to see from him next season?
Well, listen, I mean, he played 13 games, and he was 67 yards short of 3,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say at the bare minimum, and I know numbers don't say everything, but I would say 3,500 yards, 20, like what he has now. I would say 23 touchdowns is a good baseline. So 3,500, 23 touchdowns. If he could, I'll even cut him some slack because he's a gunslinger. If we could keep that interception between 12 to 15, and I think but it has to look better. Like it's not so much about the numbers as it is the eye test and it looking better. But I would say stat-wise, I think goals for him, I think he should be able to hit around 3,500 yards, 23 touchdowns, and hopefully he can clean up those interceptions to where it's 12 to 15 instead of 18 and pushing 20.
See,
So
I agree on the yards. I think he should at least, at the bare minimum, hit 30. If he plays all 16 games, bare minimum, he should hit 3,500 yards. Bare minimum, because most quarterbacks at this point are hitting 4,000, and sometimes hitting 3,800 is a bad year for a lot of quarterbacks. So bare minimum needs to be 3,500. I would like to see that number closer to 37, 3,800. That touchdown, that needs to be between 27 and 30 to me. With the weapons, getting Cortland Sutton back, that needs to be at least 27. I think a goal should hit 30. The interceptions, I agree with you. He is a bit of a gunslinger, but I would say if you can get that closer to 10. I would say try and hover around 12. I don't necessarily want to see you hit another 15 interception year. So if you can stay right around, I would say anywhere between 10 and 13, great. So I'm upping it a little bit because he's getting Cortland Sutton back. He's getting Juwan James back. Jerry Jeudy will be in his second year, and Noah Fant will be in his third. And he gets Alberto, another big tight end, who, if healthy, is going to have a really good year in his second year. Oh, and by the way, KJ Hamler, a speed guy, you can use him a little bit better. So
right.
I'm putting it at, and I think this is attainable. For Drew Lock, I think it's attainable. I don't think he gets it because I don't think he's good enough. Just flat out, I just don't think he's good enough. But in order for him to prove me wrong, 3,700 yards, 27 touchdowns at least. Would like to see 30. And anywhere between 10 and 13 picks. The big thing, though, I want to see that completion percentage at 65.
Yeah.
That
I don't know if he'll make that big of a jump. I'd say lower 60s.
No, in his first 5 games, his rookie year, he is 64. And based off the last
but
5
over a full season,
sure,
but he was at 57.
Sure, but the last 5 games, I would say he's been at right around. Let's see. I'd say the last 5 games he's been right around 63. So I want that. I want him to be at least 63, preferably 65.
Okay.
There needs to be improvement. And if your last 5 games you're right around 63, then that should improve. So I'm going to say anywhere between 63, 65 completion percentage.
That's fair.
And if all that happens, they're a 10-win team because they have the talent.
Yeah. I mean, I think those are fair stats. I just gave the bare minimums where I just want to see him at. If he could hit 25 touchdowns, I'd be fine with that. If he could be 62%, I'd be fine with that.
I think in this league, if you're not hitting 27, 30 passing touchdowns, then I'm gonna assume that if he only gets 23, 25, he either had a bad year, or he had injuries and missed games, or a running back took the majority of those touchdowns. Like Melvin Gordon had 15 touchdowns.
Well, and that could be a possibility too.
Right.
I mean, if they're able to run the ball and be effective at that, then he's going to lose some of those touchdowns.
Right. But that means, but I'm not saying that Gordon has barely over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. That needs to be at 1,400 yards, 12 to 15 touchdowns. And then I can say, okay, maybe Drew Lock's numbers are a little bit lower, but that doesn't take away from the completion percentage. If completion percentage is still at 60 or even lower, like this year, then no, that can't happen.
We'll see. It's going to be an interesting year 3 for Drew Lock. But before we close today, I want to get to some Denver Nuggets because they were able to turn things around a little bit. They're still a losing team. They're at 2-4, but they got a big win last night, 124-109 against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Karl Anthony Towns did not play. They will play the Timberwolves tomorrow in Minnesota again. And it was looking kind of bleak there in that third quarter. I mean, the Timberwolves took the lead, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. But hey, Jamal Murray, he heard you. He heard your slander. He heard that you've turned around. You Benedict Arnold betraying him. But he had 36 last night, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. Love to see that. 13 of 20, 3 of 7 from 3. Jokic, man. I mean, this guy, 19, 12, and 12. I get at the point total, people are like, oh, 19 points. But we've grown accustomed now to, like, this is Jokic's triple-double stat line. I mean, he can score over 20, but the 19, that doesn't even bother me.
Well, what
19,
did we
12 and
say?
12,
What did we say
8 of
before
12
the
from
season?
field.
If Jamal has a big year and MPJ is shooting the ball well, he's not going to average over 20 points per game, and he's probably
Yeah.
going to average triple-double.
He might. I mean, listen, through his 4 games, let me see if
I
can
think
find
he's going to, though, because
the tweet.
Jamal's picking it up the last 2 games, and MPJ's been out. Now, is that a concern that the 2 games that MPJ's been out, Jamal's gone for 30 plus?
Well, those guys seem to play their best when neither's on the court.
So
MPJ had his 30-point
that's
game
a
when
huge concern.
Jamal was there. Yeah,
That's
I don't think
huge
it's
concern.
Look, I just think it's 2 guys that need the ball to be effective.
MPJ should be coming off the bench.
Sure,
I think he should run. I think he should run the bench unit.
We'll see.
And that's nothing against MPJ. That's just
it's just fit. It's about fit.
It's about fit.
They're just not finding, and they need to find the rhythm together to be able to play together. But I'd rather have this problem than be like, God, we don't have anybody that can score.
Yeah.
You know, so they have scores. They have guys that can put it in the bucket. At least three guaranteed guys that can go off for 30 at the bare minimum each night. Right. You have that. Now it's that second unit where it's like, credit to Monte Morris. He's been balling out this year. People will look at his point total. He's probably hovering around 10, but he comes in and gives them a solid 10 every night. Yeah. You can expect that from Monte. Jermichael Green, pleasantly surprised last night.
He's
14 points.
By the way, he needs to start.
3.
Paul Millsap, man.
Yeah, well, Millsap had 12 last night. Millsap was 12, 4 of 7 from 3, so he had a good game.
If Jermichael Green had those 30 minutes instead, he would have had a much better game.
Maybe. Will Barton, rough night, 3 of 11, 8 points, 2 of 5 from 3. But and Gary Harris, I mean, woof, 1 of 8, 2 points. I mean, we got to do something with Gary, man. I mean, we say this every week, I feel like, but Michael, I mean, we got to do something with Gary. It's just brutal. It's becoming painful at this point. But my guy, I gave up on him too soon. Fuck Campasso, baby. Let's go, Campasso. Let's go. 15 points, 5 of 7 from 3. Now listen, I'm not counting on this every game, but he was unconscious last night. He was unconscious. He hit like 3 or 4 in a row.
Did you see that pass from Jokic to him in the corner?
Dude,
that might have been the best pass I've ever seen. And that's saying a lot. Dude, he didn't look at him once.
Well,
not even for a second.
He had that similar pass a couple games ago, and I think it was to Will Barton. And it was the opposite side. He was looking this way, and he just threw it. And it's on a rope in the corner. I'm like, I had to slow it down. I was like, okay, he had to have looked.
He didn't look at all.
He didn't look. And I was like, how did he know where he was? But yes, that pass was mind-blowing. But Campasso, he played well last night, 5 of 7. There was a 3 he hit that was by the Minnesota bench. And like the teams like to get up when a guy's about to shoot a 3 and they'll yell to try and make a miss. And they did that. And Campasso drains it, and he turns and looks at the bench and is trotting back. And I was like, oh, that. Yes. I love that. And I bet he said something too. I was like, yeah, I love that. But I don't know if we can count on that from him every night. But he's starting to find a little bit of a groove. I don't know if his minutes will be as consistent as getting, he got 15 last night. I don't know if he's going to, or he got 21 last night. He got 21,
yeah.
And then that obviously helps with MPJ out. I doubt he's going to get that. But listen, for guys to be effective, they need to get minutes. And for Campasso, he's essentially a rookie. So even though he's been a professional overseas, the NBA game is different from the European game. So there's an adjustment period.
Right.
Now, at the end of the day, basketball is basketball, but he still has to not only adjust to the league, but adjust to his teammates and how they're playing in his role. So I think it's going to take time. But he had a great game last night. It was good to see the Nuggets get back rolling. Now, can they just do it consistently? But Jokic, man, he's on an MVP type level season. Our guy Ryan Blackburn put it out last night. Nikola Jokic's points, rebounds, assists, and field goal percentage by game. He's got 29, 15, and 14, 24, 9, and 10, 19, 12, and 18, 26, 12, or 10 and 12, 17, 9, and 11, 19, 12, and 12. In each of those games, it was 61%, 53%, 72%, 64%, 53%, 66%.
I will say this, though. 7, 1, 10, 3, and 5. Those are the turnovers.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, and also his last 3 games, 5, 5, and 4. That's fouls.
Mm.
So that's a concern. The fouls I'm not so concerned about. I think that I think that will go down. The turnovers, when you have the ball in your hand, when Russ had the triple double year, he had a lot of turnovers. So I think it's just more so that he has the ball so much, but still, you can't have 10 turnovers in a game, and that's a loss
Right.
that you should have had. You were up by 9 going to the fourth. And then last night, I mean, 7 turnovers. Yeah, you won by 15, but I mean,
I'll say this about the
it's a
turnovers.
bad team.
He has been. I saw a stat the other day that the Timberwolves, and this was from the Timberwolves head coach, when they were watching film of Jokic or of the Nuggets. Jokic brought the ball up. Okay, this is a crazy stat. Brought the ball up. I think it was like 60% of the time.
Yeah, he's their point guard.
That's insane for a center. So, and like you say, naturally, when you have the ball in your hands that much, like he's the initiator of their offense.
Mm-hmm.
So, is it concerning that's a bit high right now? Yes. I do think there's reasoning for that. One, I think you're getting new elements to the starting lineup.
Mm-hmm.
There's new players on this team. Like there was a pass last night where he threw it to Jermichael Green, and Jermichael Green wasn't paying attention running up the court.
Right.
And if he was, that probably was a layup. And they were talking about on the broadcast that that's Jermichael Green just having to learn to play with Jokic.
Mm-hmm.
That when you play with him, you have to pay attention because a pass. We saw the Campazzo pass. He's not even looking at you. He can pass it to you. So literally, if you're not looking at Jokic, there could be a pass coming your way. So I think there's times where I think there's times where he does make bad passes, but I think there's times where he tries to get guys open and they either miss it or it gets deflected, whatever the case. I'll live with those turnovers because I think more often than not,
well, I will
he
too.
makes the right play.
I will too,
and he'll make that pass.
But 10 and 7 is a high. If
it's not good. Yeah.
His first 2 games he had 5 and 3. I'll take that. It's like, look, we'll keep doing it. We've done it for the last 2 years. I compared Nikola Jokic to LeBron in a lot of ways. Obviously, he doesn't have the athleticism. Shocker. But
yeah, he's better.
His IQ is it's a huge learning curve when you have to play with someone like Nikola Jokic or LeBron. And what did the Lakers do? Not this past offseason, but almost 2 years ago at this point, where they wanted to go out and get a bunch of high IQ guys. They went out and got Rondo, Dwight Howard. I can't think of any more names right now. But the main thing was they wanted high IQ players. Why? Because it's so difficult to play with someone like LeBron. Because he sees things happen before he sees things happen before he even gets on that side of the court. That's like Jokic. Jokic is 2 plays ahead, probably 5 plays ahead. And so you need other players to be maybe not necessarily that far ahead, but you need other players to be 2 plays ahead along with them. And so someone like Jermichael Green, who's maybe not used to that, is coming in, and he's, the Clippers take a lot of plays off. They do. And so he's used to that. The Nikola Jokic does not take plays off. Yeah. So, that's a huge learning curve. And PJ, it's been a roller coaster ride with him because I don't think his IQ is very high. I'm not saying he's stupid, but his IQ, but he doesn't have the highest IQ, and so it's gonna take, at least basketball IQ. It's taken him a lot longer to figure out how to play with Nikola Jokic. Now we're starting to see when those two are on the court by themselves, it's there. They're getting there, but it's taken a long time. Even with Campazzo, like it's a huge learning curve to play with someone like Nikola Jokic. So that's why I think, one, it's the slow start. You've got a lot of new pieces and and they're trying to learn how to play with him, and it's just one of those things where that's why we're not worried about this team, is because yeah, they're 2-4, but they're 2-4, right? Yeah, 2-4. But it's you can see they're right there. Like you can see, like, they're on the edge. They just got to figure out a couple of little issues. They got to get MPJ back. And this team also can't afford injuries. Over the last couple of years, they've been able to, have Gary miss 40 games, have Paul Millsap miss 30 games. Will Barton has missed 60 games, and they've been just fine. This is a year where I don't think they can afford anyone to miss any time.
Yeah,
So
no, I agree with that. They don't have
maybe
a lot
Paul. They can maybe afford Paul Millsap to miss a few games because of Jermichael Green. As long as Green is healthy, I think they can afford a little bit of that. They can rest Paul Millsap at times. But other than that, I mean, they got to figure it out.
Well, yeah, they can't have one of the big three scorers miss significant time. Well, they can't have multiple though. Like they need Jokic, Murray, and MPJ to remain relatively healthy, or at least two of those three guys.
There won't be a Magnificent Seven type of game with this team.
Yeah, no. They just don't have a lot of scoring, a lot of guys that you can count on for buckets. And speaking of scoring, how about it's paying me to watch last night? Malik Beasley, 25 points, 10 of 16, 3 of 5 from 3. He had 7 rebounds and 5 assists.
They could have used that last year. They wouldn't have been able to re-sign him, though. Well,
no, but it just hurts.
They would have had to have chosen between him and Grant. So then, I guess, to be fair, they might have been able to. Then they wouldn't have gotten Jermichael Green. I don't know. I don't think they would have been able to afford.
I know. And given like Malik's off the court issues that have surfaced, like it's
I see Wancho is still Wancho though.
Yeah. Wancho's Wancho. 3 of 10, 6 points. That's Wancho's doing Wancho things. I like Wancho, but when he shot it, I was like, oh yeah, that's Clangs. And every time, just, boom, I was like, yep, that's what I expect. And then when Malik shot it, I was like, and then that was usually net, and I was like, okay. I like that Jarrett Culver too. Yeah, that they have Jarrett Culver. He's a good young player. Yeah. 20 points last night, 6 rebounds. It seems like every time down he was making a play for them. But it was a good, solid win for the Nuggets. Far from where we think they should be. But my under is looking better on the Nuggets prediction. I'm feeling good about it.
Yeah, and then they rip off 10 in a row, and you're like, oh crap.
yeah. Until they start, getting it going. Then I'm like, hey, you know what, Mike? Let's rest some guys these last 17 games, and let's just finish right around 42 wins.
So do you know what happened with Hartenstein? Why he didn't play? Was that a flat out coach's decision?
I think that was just a coach's. I think they're just looking for lineups. I think they're just trying to find the rotation right now. And honestly,
but going with 3 point guards,
he was injured.
Going with 3 point guards out of your 4 bench guys
it's risky.
That's not gonna work against good teams.
I think they're just trying to find the balance. I think they're just trying to find like Zeke Naji, and maybe Hartenstein was hurt. I don't know. I didn't see anything before the game that he was hurt.
I mean, it says coach's decision, so it can't be injury.
Yeah.
It
could be.
I mean, I guess it technically could be. I don't know that, because I feel like he's been playing well. Maybe he's just not getting it on the defensive end. But that's a concern. I don't know. This team and the lineup. Malone is so stubborn when it comes to the starting lineup that it makes it really difficult to be able to change things around. But I want to see PJ Dozier or Monte in the starting lineup instead of Gary.
Okay, I'm seeing here right now. So Michael Malone explained that he tightened his rotation last night, and the reason Hartenstein didn't play was they wanted to match up against Minnesota's small ball.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So, there was no Karl Anthony Towns last night. Right. So I don't know if he's going to play tomorrow. I'm not sure why he didn't play. Obviously, it's probably due to some sort of injury, but I don't know if he's in COVID protocol or anything like that. But I'd expect him to play tomorrow, but if he doesn't, that's a win for the Nuggets. I'll take anytime you don't have to play against that guy. because he gives Jokic the business. Jokic gives him the business,
Mhm.
but Karl Anthony Towns, he's a good big man. But the Nuggets are slowly, I think, starting to figure it out. I don't know. I mean, they still have a hellacious stretch
Well,
here.
I would say Jamal is starting to figure it out. I wouldn't necessarily say that the team is figuring it out. I think they got lucky that Compazzo had a good shooting night. If he doesn't, I don't. It's they either barely win or they possibly even lose. So
Well, I think they're slowly figuring out who can play, like what lineups work. That's what I mean. Like what lineups work together, what lineups don't. Like what guys work in certain lineups, who doesn't. But they're gonna need to figure it out soon because I mean you got Minnesota again, then you got Dallas, then you got Philly, who's got one of the best records in the league. I think the best record.
Philly's playing really
New
well.
York, listen, they haven't been a pushover this year.
Mm-mm.
They're playing teams very
Yeah,
competitive.
RJ
Then you
Barrett.
got Brooklyn.
RJ Barrett's looking good.
Yeah, Brooklyn after that. Then you have Golden State. Listen, we just saw Steph drop 62 last night. So, and then you got Utah. So, and then OKC. Meh. But then you got an away again with Phoenix, who you just lost to the other night. So, that's a tough stretch coming up. But real quickly though, on Steph. I mean, Damian is good. Like Damian's gonna be a Hall of Famer, but like he's not Steph Curry.
No.
Okay. Like Steph Curry, he showed you last night that he is still insane.
Yeah.
He's nuts.
It goes LeBron, KD, and Steph.
Yeah.
Those are the three best players in the league.
Yeah. He might bump AD out. He might bump when Steph plays like that. There's just nothing you can like. He's hitting shots. It just doesn't even matter.
It's
how
not. It's not even just the 3-point shooting though, because I mean I don't know how many threes he hit, but he still had 62 points. So a lot of those points came off of just layups, mid range. I mean he literally does everything. He had what? How many assists did he have?
So I'm looking at the
4?
box score now. He had
62,
so
5 and 4?
62 points. He had 4 assists, 5 rebounds. He was 8 of 16 from 3. So,
Yeah, but I mean, he only had 8 threes, and he still had 62 points.
So 24 of that came from 3. He had 18 free throws. I mean, and Damian had 32. He had 30 more than Damian Lillard. That is stupid. I mean, that guy, when he goes nuts, he just goes nuts. And we saw it firsthand in that playoff series when it was born. And he's fun to watch. He's probably my most, outside of Jokic, the most fun player to watch, because he's just the stuff he can do. And I was watching a guy break down this game last night. He was just going through breaking down the film of it, and he's like, the main difference between Steph and Damian is the off-ball movement.
Mm-hmm.
Steph does things that nobody else does off-ball. He is so hard, and that's what I've said it multiple times on this podcast. I think Steph Curry's best skill is his off-ball movement.
Yeah.
Because he's so you have to literally run with him for however many minutes he plays. If you stop, then you get screened, and he's open, and he's coming off of it, and he's nailing a 3.
Yeah.
So,
and that's why I like someone like Jamal, and I always talk about it. I like him playing off ball. I want them to use Jamal like Golden State uses Steph. Because Jamal's a great catch and shoot guy. Like he can do that. Maybe not to that extent.
right.
But he can do it. So, Jamal's a great one-on-one guy, but the Nuggets need to work harder at getting him the ball in other ways instead of just one-on-one.
Yeah. I agree. Allow him to navigate screens.
Yeah.
Allow him to try and get better at that.
Same with MPJ. They now a lot of MPJs does come off of screens and stuff like that, and it works. But yeah, you need to do that. Also, one thing with Golden State, Wiseman.
He looks good.
He's the best player in that draft.
He looks really good for them.
22 minutes. 20. That's it. 22 minutes. He had 12 and 11. Also had 2 blocks.
No, I mean, I saw I think you retweeted the other day where he had a block. He got the board and he took it coast to coast and dunked it. And I was like, well, that's insane. That man's legitimately 7 foot.
He is the best player. He's the best player in that draft. I mean, maybe someone else later in the draft comes up in whatever that I don't know. But out of the top 5, top 10, at least the players that I looked at, he's the best.
he gives them a legitimate rim protecting option that can also step out from three. Now, I don't know if he's like a great 3-point, but he can knock them down.
Yeah, he'll be able to in 2-3 years. Yeah.
He gives them he gives them what they had in JaVale McGee, Kevon Looney, Andrew Bogut, but he has all that rim protection, but he's a better athlete and he's more skilled offensively.
Yeah.
So like he gives them like a perfect blend.
Man, if they had
Clay healthy, this team would be scary.
They would be at bare minimum 5-1 right now.
They would be absolutely terrifying. They would probably be back on track to making an NBA Finals.
Because Kelly Oubre, he's really good. Wiggins is right now. He's probably your third option. If you had Clay, Wiggins would be your either third or fourth right there with Oubre. This team, man, I'm so bummed Clay is out.
Yeah.
I'm so bummed. But they're gonna get Clay in Wiseman's second year. That's terrifying.
Yeah. You want to guess
Draymond
Green's stat line from last night?
Oh, I'm looking at it.
Triple single, 1 point, 8 assists, 3 rebounds. That's what he does, baby.
Also had the one steal and the 1 block.
Yep. That's what he does, man.
Yep, that's what he does.
And he's probably going to get into the Hall of Fame. This is a guy who's probably don't look. What do you think Draymond's point per game average is? I'd say 12.
In his career?
For his career.
Oh, yeah. I'd say I'm going to say 9. Triple single.
Let's see. I'm gonna
say 9.
Let's see. For his career, he is 8.9. Wow. Did you look? I feel like you cheated.
I did not look.
Look at that. He is a career triple single.
That's why they call
8.9.
That's why I said 9, because I was like
5 assists.
I was like, he scored enough earlier in his career to where he's gonna be close to double digit. But there's a reason why everyone calls him triple single. I'm just gonna say 9. That was a good guess.
He averages 9 points, 7 rebounds, and
by the time his
5 assists.
By the time his career ends, it's gonna be like 6. Yeah, it's gonna be like 6 points.
Is Draymond a Hall of Famer? He's a multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year, and he was a key part on those championship teams. But
yes,
is he a Hall of Famer?
Yes, because the NBA Hall of Fame is so easy to get into. I think people are gonna look at him like more like a modern day, or at least that era's Dennis Rodman.
Yeah.
So I think he does based off of that.
That is just nuts to me.
I mean, he had the highest plus minus. He had 1 point. Yeah, he was a plus 22. Steph was a plus 20.
Yeah. And we joke about it, but like, I'd love Draymond on this team. I would love a Draymond Green on this team.
I would take Draymond over Paul Millsap.
Yeah.
Because at least he's not taking 10 shots to get 4.
No. Well, and he's a high IQ basketball player.
Yeah.
He just knows the game so well.
He would work great with Jokic.
Yeah. He's not a great athlete. He's undersized. He's not a great scorer, but he gives great effort. He brings great energy. He's a dog. I mean, I would love Draymond. And Kemp said Draymond on the Nuggets would be muy bueno. Yes, of course it would. Unfortunately, he's probably going to retire there. So, but yeah, that team would be. If Clay was healthy, they might be representing the Western Conference final, or the Western Conference in the NBA Finals. But I don't know. We dodged a bullet with that, and we'll see him back next year at full form, hopefully. So, but that's going to do it for us today. Hopefully, the Nuggets can get back on track. Tomorrow, they got the Timberwolves at, 7 p.m. So that should be on altitude. Unless you're Brandon, then you have to go through the Chinese VPN and finagle some ways to watch the game. Hopefully he doesn't get caught and go.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Prison time. But
I don't know what you're talking about.
Otherwise, for normal people, you can watch it on altitude. For people like Brandon, you have to go to the underground market and pay some Bitcoin to get the reliable stream.
I don't know what you're talking about.
To find the game.
I deny everything.
But that's going to do it for us today. We thank you guys for watching. Thanks for rocking with us all season long for this Broncos season. It's done. It's over with. There's no more pain until next year. And then we see what they do. But for now, we've got the Nuggets Hopefully they can turn it around. Other than that, it looks like there might be only one team in Denver that can win, and that's the Avalanche. So hopefully the Avalanche can keep it going for all of our sakes. For Brandon Stoll on the other side, shout out to Eric Camp for interacting with us on YouTube. I'm Stephen Parise Jr. We will catch you guys on Friday. That's so funny.
I don't know what you're talking about.